Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are talking about the Book of Boba Fett once again, and the fact that it shouldn't even be called the Book of Boba Fett at this point. But guys, before we dive any deeper into this, just remember that at least one of my videos every week will not be coming to my YouTube channel. It will be going to my BitChute, Odyssey, and Rumble channels. Yes, you heard right. I am finally on Rumble. So if you have not followed me on any of those three sites, if you're watching this on YouTube, the links to those sites will be in the description down below. But anyway, guys, let's get into this from Screen Rant here. And the fact is, Boba Fett has completely lost his own Star Wars show. And from what I've read in the spoilers for each episode, because I'm just gonna be blunt with you guys, I gave up on the show after episode 1. You know, it never really hooked me. And I just got incredibly bored with it. It's like, is there even any point to the show? And I'm actually kind of glad I stopped watching it, because holy shit with all these spoilers. But anyway, I'm tangenting for too long. The Star Wars Disney Plus TV show may be called the Book of Boba Fett, but in truth, its star has lost his own show to far more interesting cameos, and this is rather sad. Boba Fett has completely lost his own Star Wars story in a stream of cameos in the Book of Boba Fett. Introduced in The Empire Strikes Back as one of the galaxy's foremost bounty hunters, Boba Fett was presented as a true force to be reckoned with. And remember, boys and girls, they never actually said his name in The Empire Strikes Back. The only reason he got the name Boba Fett was for the I believe it was for the toys. That in order for George Lucas at the time to get the copyright to the toys, the character had to be named. The first time Boba Fett was ever mentioned by name was in Return of the Jedi, and that was just before Han had hit his jetpack and he went to the Sarlacc pit. But anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Introducing Empire Strikes Back. Okay, Boba Fett was presented the true for. Okay, I already got through that. For all that's the case, though, he didn't exactly fare well in Return of the Jedi when George Lucas decided to wrap up the original trilogy and kill Boba Fett off in the least spectacular fashion imaginable. But they did bring him back to life in the comics and the books back in the 90s, though. So they didn't really end Boba Fett. Lucasfilm brought the bounty hunter back, revealing Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc. Disney Plus's TV show, The Book of Boba Fett, has revealed how he survived that grim fate. Well, you know, Dark Horse's Dark Empire also went into how he survived it. And it has seen Boba attempt to reinvent himself as a crime boss, tired of working for power-hungry men who would waste his life on absurd quests, eager to gain some independence in the criminal underworld. In theory, the story should be a compelling one, a tale of transformation in which Boba Fett restructures the sprawling criminal empire that once belonged to Jabba the Hutt. And yet, for all that's the case, the Book of Boba Fett isn't quite pulling it off. In truth, the problems have been there from the beginning. A series like this requires a laser-like focus, and that's been absent from the show ever since the Book of Boba Fett Episode 1. The problems have been compounded over episodes 5 and 6 as the show has drifted away from its ostensible star. Now Boba Fett has effectively become a cameo in his own Disney Plus TV series. It's first necessary to acknowledge that the Book of Boba Fett has never really committed to Boba Fett's story. The first 4 episodes were far more interested in flashbacks explaining his past growth as a character, how he survived the Sarlacc, was taken in by the Tuskens, and learned he needed to have a clan of his own. It's true the narrative was compelling, fleshing out Tusken culture and society in a remarkable way, but the focus on this past story meant Boba Fett's present day was never explored. And I would argue that you never needed the flashbacks. Why does Boba Fett need a backstory? He never did. George Lucas went on and on and on for many, many years that Boba Fett was based on Clint Eastwood, and more specifically, Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name trilogy. So right there, you're already deviating from what the character is. The character needs no backstory. He just strolls into town, solves the problem, and leaves. That's it. Just keep him as a man of few words. You know, the more we know about Boba Fett, the less interesting he becomes. You know, the same thing happened with the Han Solo movie. How did they think it would work out for Boba Fett? When Boba Fett killed Bib Fortuna, he supposedly took over a vast criminal empire, and yet he seems to have only inherited 2 Gamorreans as muscle and a single major credit-making business that, as of Episode 6, has been destroyed. Oh, great. The former bounty hunter was forced to recruit a random group of swoop racers to work for him. I believe called the Power Rangers, if I'm not mistaken. While Episode 6 and Cobb Vanth's return clearly set up the citizens of Freetown coming to Boba's rescue and his war with the Pike Syndicate. Frankly, it's still unclear what Boba Fett actually does as a crime boss in the first place. He seems to sit on a throne, receiving occasional tributes and going for strolls every now and again. It's as though the Book of Boba Fett just isn't particularly interested in Boba Fett's new status quo. Boba Fett didn't even appear in Episode 5, which was instead dedicated entirely to Din Djarin and explored the consequences of The Mandalorian Season 2. Viewers had expected a cameo from Mando, but instead he effectively became the lead as he was banished from the Mandalorian sect he had grown up in and returned to Tatooine to get a new spaceship. While it is true there are thematic parallels between Din Djarin's story and Boba Fett's, these were underdeveloped, and it led to the feeling that the Book of Boba Fett Episode 5 was something of a tangent, one rather more interesting than the main story, featuring a more compelling lead. Unfortunately, it felt as though the writers and showrunners agreed. And keep in mind, guys, the Book of Boba Fett, this is going to be a 7-episode series. So if even one of your episodes tangents, yeah, people have the right to be this pissed off. The end of the Book of Boba Fett Episode 5 sent Din Djarin back to Luke Skywalker, with Mando hoping to give Grogu a gift of Beskar armor. Remarkably, Episode 6 continued on this tangent and went even further with it, devoting a large amount of time to Luke Skywalker's training of Grogu and his reflections on whether the diminutive Force-sensitive was truly committed to the ways of the Jedi. Again, it was exciting viewing, appealing to nostalgia by inverting Yoda's training of Luke in The Empire Strikes Back, while playing fan service with the construction of Luke Skywalker's ill-fated Jedi Temple. Critics of Luke's portrayal in Star Wars The Last Jedi are especially enthused because they finally get to see Luke at the height of his powers. And yet, as enjoyable as Episode 6 may have, the bulk of it was fan service that contributed nothing to Boba Fett's story. Not only did the main character not appear in Episode 5, he only had a cameo in Episode 6. It doesn't help that the Book of Boba Fett Episode 6 was packed with other cameos. Timothy Olyphant reprised the role of Cobb Vanth, the Marshal of Mos Pelgo, now renamed Freetown, who had worn Boba Fett's armor for a time. Pedro Pascal's Din Djarin and the puppet Grogu played major roles. Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker got the star treatment, with the unnecessary addition of Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka added in as a bit of fan service, and denying viewers the opportunity to see the first meeting between Luke and his father's old Padawan, an almost unforgivable storytelling choice that will surely be corrected in flashbacks in the upcoming Ahsoka series. All these cameos created the sense the Book of Boba Fett has become a continuing story of the post-Return of the Jedi galaxy, with Boba only serving as one of the key players. Boba Fett has seldom been portrayed as the deepest character in the Star Wars galaxy. Ironically, that should have meant the Book of Boba Fett was an opportunity for Lucasfilm to flesh him out, exploring his hidden depths and showing viewers what makes Star Wars fearsome ex-bounty hunter tick. There's an interesting idea in his new status quo. The former gun for hire trying to reinvent himself as a crime lord, but Lucasfilm don't seem willing to commit to that character in that story. Instead, they're far more interested in the cameos, who are increasingly dominating the series. Din Djarin and Grogu are having more notable character arcs in the present day than Boba Fett himself, and Boba increasingly lacks agency in his war against the Pikes. Well, like I said, Boba Fett was a character that never needed to have any backstory, and I think the reason why they're so scared to be committed to Boba Fett as a crime lord is because they would have to make the show very dark and very gritty, something akin to an FX series, and to bring Timothy Olyphant back into it, something more akin to a show like Justified. I know Justified followed Timothy Olyphant as a lawman, but still, the show needed to be very grounded and very gritty. But this is also Disney that we're talking about, and oh my God, we can't show any dismemberment from from lightsabers. We can't show any blood on screen, despite them showing blood on screen in the Force Awakens. But still, it's the Book of Boba Fett is very Disneyfied, when really this series should have went to Hulu. If we're being entirely honest, it should have went to FX on Hulu. That way they could have room to make the show very dark and very gritty. But oh no, we can't have it. We can't have an R-rated Star Wars property. We can't have an M-rated Star Wars game with Star Wars 1313. Oh my god. But here we go. The Cad Bane cameo at the end of episode 6 hopefully means there will be something for Boba Fett to do in the finale of his own Disney Plus TV series. Cad Bane is Boba Fett's old mentor, so they're presumably going to have a showdown. But even this is unsatisfying because only viewers who are familiar with the history between the two will care about it. Exactly. You know, if you've never seen Star Wars: The Clone Wars, you don't know who Cad Bane is. You don't give a fuck on who Cad Bane is. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, Cad Bane was one of the most wasted fucking characters in Clone Wars. And I actually remember this fucking commercial promoting season 2.
Across this endless galaxy, many battles there are. Choose carefully. Decide on which you fight.
Greetings, kind audience. I do hate to interrupt. I want to remind Jedi boy that we bounty hunters take exception. We bow to no law. Either you give or you take, and we tend to take.
It's Bane! Inflict devastating damage on the Jedi Order. He could.
They sent bounty hunters after us.
Stop him!
What could they be after?
I sense something, Master.
It's the dark side, Ahsoka. That looks like a lot of droids. I'll fight to my last breath to keep them safe.
Get down!
Reinforcements are on their way.
A Jedi is coming.
Come around and I'll try to get them off your tail. So long, Jedi.
Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Rise of the Bounty Hunters. Season premiere, October 2nd. Only on Cartoon Network.
Yes, Cad Bane was teased to be a major player in season 2. You want to know how many episodes he was in season 2 of Clone Wars? 3. He was in the very first episode, then he was in the second one, he got shot, but then he disguised himself as a clone trooper in order to escape, and then they caught him at the very beginning of the third episode. He steals a ship, and he is never seen or heard from ever again in the Clone Wars. In all 7 seasons, Cad Bane basically went from he is going to lead the season. This is Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the rise of the bounty hunters, and it never fucking happened. Yeah, if you can't tell, I was pissed at the time, and I'm still pretty pissed off about it because Cad Bane, let's be honest, looks more like Clint Eastwood than fucking Boba Fett. Going so far as he has the big brim hat and the fucking poncho from, Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the fucking Ugly. Anyway, I'm tangenting for too long. This is even more frustrating given the Book of Boba Fett has spent so much time on flashbacks, meaning that in narrative terms, the show could have actually set up the dynamic between Cad Bane and Boba Fett by showing how Boba began. Something has clearly gone wrong with the Book of Boba Fett. At heart, the issue is one of focus. The writers simply aren't engaged with Boba Fett's new status quo, spending the first half of the series exploring Tusken culture and society, and the second half revealing what's going on with other characters. Episode 6 illustrated the problem perfectly, attempting to use fan service to obscure its lack of focus. In narrative terms, it means Boba Fett doesn't feel like a power player, but rather like a secondary character in other people's stories. It's ironic that this is exactly what he was in The Empire Strikes Back, but not what the Book of Boba Fett was supposed to treat him as. At the moment, the main arc appears to belong to Din Djarin and Grogu, upending the Mandalorian Season 2 by bringing them back, by bringing back together so Season 3 can maintain its core dynamic. Sadly, this leaves the Book of Boba Fett's second half increasingly feeling like the Mandalorian Season 2.5. And you know what? If you are genuinely pissed off that the Book of Boba Fett is not the Boba Fett show that you wanted, you are 100% in the right to hold that opinion. Especially now that, you know, you've got a character that's essentially playing second fiddle to everyone, and on top of that, he won't shut the fuck up. You know, even Tamura Morrison agrees that he is speaking too much. There have been countless interviews of him where he has gone on and on about the fact that he tried to cut back on Boba's dialogue, but they kept fighting back on it. You know, Boba Fett is a more interesting character when he remains as a man of few words. The problem is if you get him talking like a fucking chatty Cathy, and you have him, remove his helmet, which they don't need him to remove his fucking helmet. If you've ever seen Attack of the Clones, we already know that he is a clone of his father, Jango Fett, who Tamura Morrison did play in that movie. So we already know what Boba Fett fucking looks like. Unlike Din Djarin in The Mandalorian, when we finally get to see Pedro Pascal's face. So everyone who's claiming, well, you were fine with Mando, Din Djarin removing his helmet, but now everyone's criticizing Boba Fett removing his helmet. That's comparing apples to fucking oranges at this point. And I've tangented for way too long and ranted too long. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it right here because I know I've probably gone on longer than I needed to. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following me long enough, you know I am terrible at ending these videos. So I will just see you guys next time.